We throw around the words prayer and worship pretty much interchangeably, right? But what if I told you that for most of Christian history, they meant two totally different things? Like, so different that mixing them up would have been, well, just unthinkable.
So let's just ask it straight up. Is praying the same as worshiping? And it feels like it should be a simple question, but the answer has literally shaped centuries of theology, how we build our churches, and even the way we think about approaching God.
See, this isn't a simple yes or no kind of deal. It's more like a major fork in the road. And getting a handle on this difference is actually the key to understanding why different Christian traditions have ended up on such different paths.
So, how on earth did we get here? Here's the plan. We're going to kick things off by defining our terms. Then we'll dig into the sacrificial heart of worship. After that, we'll trace the history to see how things got so confusing. And finally, we'll pull it all together to figure out what is true worship anyway.
Okay, let's dive in. First things first, we've got to get our definitions straight. You know how words can change their meaning over time? Well, to really crack this one, we need to rewind and look at where these words actually came from.
So let's start with worship. The word itself actually gives us a massive clue. It comes from worthy-ship, which is just a way of saying you're giving someone the honor they're due. And for the absolute highest form of that honor, the kind that's reserved only for God, theologians have a special name for it: latria.
All right, now let's flip over to prayer. This one comes from the Latin word precare, which really just means to ask. That's it. Think about it like saying, hey, can I ask you something, or I'm making a request. The original vibe is all about asking, not necessarily about giving honor.
Okay, this table really breaks it down for us. Just look at that object column. Worship, that's for God and God alone. But prayer, that can be directed to God or to others, like saints. And then look at the nature of the act. Worship is all about giving God what is His. Prayer, on the other hand, is about asking for something. And this is the real kicker. The highest act of worship is sacrifice. For prayer, it's things like petition or praise. Totally different categories.
So, that brings us to the big question. What's the one thing that really, truly separates worship from everything else? According to the sources we're looking at, it all boils down to one word: sacrifice. And this isn't just a part of worship. It's the absolute heart of it.
And hey, this isn't some newfangled idea. St. Augustine laid it out super bluntly centuries ago. He basically said, you can honor a king, you can praise a hero, you can ask your friend for help, but you would only ever offer a sacrifice to God. It's the ultimate line in the sand, the act that says, you are divine. Okay, so what does a true sacrifice even look like today? I mean, we're not talking about ancient temple rituals here. Well, it's kind of two-sided. On one hand, it's about offering up our day-to-day lives, our work, our service, even our struggles, back to God as a living sacrifice. But then, on the other hand, the source material points straight to the Mass, or the Eucharist, as the ultimate, pinnacle act of Christian worship, where Christ's one perfect sacrifice is made present for us right here and now. So, if worship is so deeply tied to sacrifice, how did we get to a place where most of us think of it as, well, prayer and singing songs? To figure that out, we've got to put on our detective hats and do a little historical digging. We need to see how these ideas got so tangled up over time.
This timeline really tells the whole story. Think about it. In ancient Judaism, you went to the synagogue to learn, but you went to the temple for the sacrifice. That was worship. Early Christianity kept that ball rolling with the Mass. But then, bam, the Reformation happens, and many of the reformers completely rejected the idea of the Mass as a sacrifice. So what happens when you take that central sacrificial act out of the service? Well, prayer and praise songs naturally rise to the top. They become the highest thing you can do, and over time, they just became synonymous with the word worship.
And you can literally see this shift just by looking at the architecture. Take a look on the left. In traditions that kept that sacrificial understanding, the altar is front and center. It's the focus. Now look to the right. In traditions where the sermon became the main event, what's the focus? The pulpit. The whole center of gravity in the room shifted from sacrifice to instruction.
So why is this confusion still around today? Well, it's basically a perfect storm of a few key things. First, language changed. Our word pray has gotten super narrow. Now it pretty much only means talking to God. And second, like we said, if you take sacrifice out of the equation, prayer naturally becomes the peak of the mountain. Then you mix in the fact that most people have never even heard of terms like latria, and yeah, it's really easy to see how we ended up here.
All right, so we've defined our terms, we've walked through the history, let's pull it all together. Based on this whole framework, what does true worship actually look like?
So putting all the pieces together, what does true worship look like, according to this perspective? It's not just one thing. It's a whole life kind of act. It has to start with adoring God and only God. That's that latria we talked about. It's centered on the sacrifice of the Mass. But it also spills out into our daily lives, offering our work, our good deeds, even our suffering. And of course, all of this has to be real. It has to be done in spirit and in truth, with a sincere heart, by actually living a moral life.
Okay, I know what some of you might be thinking. This is interesting theology, I guess, but does it really matter in my day-to-day life? And the answer, coming from these sources, is a resounding yes, it absolutely does. So why all the fuss? Why does this distinction matter so much? Well, first, it's about getting things right with God, making sure He gets the unique honor that only He deserves, and we don't slip into idolatry. Second, it's tied directly to salvation. The source material is clear that the Mass is where the work of our redemption happens. Third, it's about unity. A shared understanding of what you're actually doing when you gather together is a powerful unifier. And finally, it gives meaning to everything else. It connects all our daily actions back to our ultimate purpose, making them a form of spiritual worship.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. If we run with this idea that the very core of worship is sacrifice, this act of giving something valuable back to God out of love and recognition of His worth, then the really important question for each of us isn't just, do you pray? It's, what are you offering?